Greetings and namaste. Welcome back to Yoga PodClass. We are in the third class with the boundaries coach, Kerstin Phillips. We are talking today about the sacred pause. As per usual, I invite you all here to take that deep breath in through the nose. Settle in, feel the support beneath you. This is your invitation to soften between the eyebrows. Relax the jaw and stay present for what is to come. We've been having this conversation about boundaries. Over the last few episodes, we've introduced ourselves, what we do. We've talked about the sacred no and why it's so important and how it truly paves the way for our most authentic yes. Kerstin, welcome back. You are the boundaries coach. I've been so excited to share with our listeners a little bit about your story of how you became the boundaries coach. And I say became with quotation marks because we touched on the fact that the boundaries coach was, your words, a sleeping dragon always there, right? So it's not something that you found outside of yourself, it's something you found within. So I'm excited to touch more on that. But before we do, I want to touch base with what it is that you do and what we've been talking about with boundaries and why this two-letter word is a complete sentence and how it paves the way for our most authentic yeses. What you got for us today?
Well, thank you, Chelsea. It's always a treat to be here in this space with you. Now, yeah, just to reintroduce myself, yeah, I'm Kirsten, the boundaries coach, and I help emotionally exhausted humans stop saying yes when they mean no and set healthy boundaries without pushback or guilt. And for my own self, yeah, my own story of uh, I've been a coach my whole life, but I didn't know that's what this skill was called. And that's kind of where that sleeping dragon piece comes. And we'll get more into that. But I just wanted to give that little nugget. Um, so yeah, within the work that I do of connecting to boundaries and that it no is a complete sentence, that you don't have to do the things you don't want to do. And that listening to your body is one of the biggest clues as to when something feels good or when it doesn't, which is what we've been talking about with the sacred, both our yes and our no's, of understanding them and knowing them. And that is part of boundary work. And we're often disconnected from our own bodies, from our emotions, our feelings, because so much in the world's overwhelming or what you've lived through. It's often a protective mechanism is to separate yourself. But the more that you can reconnect and embody yourself, the easier it is to build healthy boundaries. The easier it is to say no when you actually want to say no. And the easier it is to say yes when you actually want to say yes. I think that's like at the root of what we're getting into today.
Yeah. I'm just letting that land for our listeners, right? Take a breath on that. Saying no when you mean no. Yep. And saying yes excitedly to the things that you want to say yes to. Yeah. And to many people, notice if that feels a little bit foreign. Notice if there's perhaps no feeling at all and there's numbness. Or maybe a like brain fog, like what does that even mean? And getting clear on our no. No, this won't work for me. No, I don't do that anymore. Right? It's okay to grow, evolve, change our mind. It's actually such a indicator of intelligence when you can be presented with new information and adapt and change. And notice that too. Notice where it lights up in your body and perhaps how it lights up in your body when I say the word change. Yeah. For me, it's in my gut. Like, oh, yikes. Okay. Because, change is kind of we're ever changing or we're not. I'm such a quote freak, but I think those little like taglines actually stick with you, right? One of my favorites is what you're not changing, you're choosing. My most recent change that I've made, because I'm an ever work in progress, and that's what's kind of unique about the journey of oneself, right? Is that we're never actually there. And it is a compassionate, curious journey to discover ourselves. And wow, right? What a privilege it is to do so. I'm thankful for this work and the time and capacity and the space to do it. But my most recent change that I made was I took Facebook off my phone. Admittedly, I struggled with that being my first app that I opened of the day. And when I opened Facebook, the first app of the day, my day is not the same. And I'm in this conversation actively with Kerstin. We're talking about boundaries. And one of the things that she said in our first or second episode was one of the hardest people to set a boundary with was herself. Yeah. And here I am. I'm like, yeah, I could not overcome it. I had to just take it off my phone. And what a shift it's made, right? Me saying no to this samskara, this rut, this pattern behavior that wasn't serving my greatest or highest good. I set a boundary and I'm celebrating it here with you guys in real time. And I'm excited to see the shifts that are going to continue to come. And Kerstin, has anything popped up for you? You're the boundaries coach. This is your whole wheelhouse, but I just know, right? It is a continued layered process. You didn't just become the boundaries coach and now you know everything. And that's why people need to listen to you. No, no, no. It's more nuanced than that. You're actively always doing the work. Has anything come up for you since we started having these conversations?
Oh yeah, of course. And yes, it is ongoing. I'm always tweaking and changing my boundaries and figuring out what's working, what's not. Even just things in my life that maybe aren't necessarily like a boundary, but realizing, yeah, habit that I'm doing, I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't serving me. Like Chelsea, I am celebrating with you of choosing now to no longer start your day with Facebook. Like that's I mean, I feel like your joy level, like your potential for joy in your day has just gone through the roof
Yeah.
because you're not in that like doom scroll first thing.
Yep.
You're setting
Trying to
yourself up.
pull myself out of it, right?
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah. It's amazing. When and you said something else, Chelsea, that I don't think that we connected on before that we both are. And you said that you're a quote freak.
Oh, yes. Yes, you too?
I am too.
Oh, hi. Yay.
I I am, and I'm also a nerd, and
Yeah.
I have a Google spreadsheet where I have a quote for every week of the year that's
Yes.
mapped out for 3 years.
Oh my gosh, this is good. She said spreadsheets too, guys. Oh my god. Thank you, universe. A spreadsheet girl who does yoga. Like, find your tribe.
Right?
Yeah.
100%. And I also wanna kinda reiterate, like, the fact that we did meet over social, we met over Instagram, that not all social media experiences are negative, that
Yeah.
there are pluses. And it's that, like, having the intention behind it, which I think is also, like, adjacent to how we're choosing our boundaries and what it is that we want. Because when you have a clear intention of, say, maybe you just wanna feel happier during the day, that could be a really, sort of simple ask, but could feel overwhelming. And Chelsea, I would imagine that by not starting your day with Facebook anymore, you are already making your day happier. And whether that was the intention behind it or not, like, a small thing like that can have a huge difference.
Absolutely. And while the intention wasn't happiness, it was focus, it was brahmacharya, which is right use of energy. Um, Happiness has been a byproduct. The clarity and attention, it's like, yes, right? I'm doing the things that I actually want to be doing because I'm saying no to the things that I actually don't need to be doing that are not growing me and helping and supporting me. And now that being said, Facebook has had positive experiences for me, social media in general, but brahmacharya, that right use of energy. And what I think it's a beautiful segue into what we're talking about today. Um, and it's the pause. And taking that pause with our breath and allowing the breath to be a boundary, right? Regulating in our body before responding and taking a moment to connect into, I love what we talked about before, like the muscle testing. What does my body say? What kind of tea do I want? Do I actually want to go to this place or not? Is it aligned with you? And playing with the energy of it, noticing, dialing it in, that conversation with yourself. And what's so beautiful, and I'm curious about, Kirsten, some of your tips and tricks, off the mat tools is what yoga PodClass is all about. How in the moment, because it can happen so fast, do you catch yourself and give yourself permission to pause, breathe, and make that informed, aligned decision?
Yeah, that's a really, really good and important question. And I want to start by reflecting back from my childhood how I didn't know it's what I was doing at the time, but looking back, I I had this habit that basically drove every human in my life crazy because someone would ask me a question or just say something to me and I don't know, 85, 90% of the time I would then say, "What?" Even though I heard them. My brain wanted a little more time. I didn't want to feel any pressure that I needed to respond immediately. And so then while they repeated themselves,
Yeah.
I would formulate my answer in my head and then I would often interrupt them halfway through because they'd already said what they'd said. And I was like, they don't actually need to finish saying what they're saying. I just needed this moment to gather my thoughts.
Yes.
So that was my little kid version of the sacred pause.
I'm this years old when I learned that about myself today. Wow. Yes, I was that little girl too that would say, "What?" And then the adult would be like, "Why did you ask me to repeat it if you heard me?" And I didn't have an answer for that. I do now today. I'd like to go back and tell all those adults that I just, hold on, I needed 3 more seconds to process what you said. But it happens that fast, right? So how did you clue this in?
I so I'm trying so I mean, I continued this habit, I know, until at least my early 20s. Like this it stuck with me. And part of why I'm like laughing is because, my now husband, we started dating when I was in my early 20s. And I remember him calling me out on this.
Yes.
And I think he was really the first person in my life that had actually like fully called me out on it. Like other people were, annoyed or, they're but it didn't fully connect to me. But whatever it was that he said, it was like but he said it in a way that I could actually hear and respond to it, which I think
Yeah.
is why we're still together. We can we can communicate and work through things. Um, and it was kind of in that moment in my early 20s, which is also around the same time that I was starting to take yoga regularly. And I also think that's probably not coincidence that I was looking for tools to help me. I think very subconsciously, like, well, I had a lot of anxiety and wanting to work through that. And yoga being this thing I stumbled into, and then being able to have more open conversations with my partner, like, oh, But you can call me on something and I'm not going to freak out. Like, that's great. So that evolved into me getting curious and then also realizing and starting to tell myself when someone asks me or says something, like, I don't have to respond the split second they stop talking.
Yeah.
And that was kind of a huge revelation for me that it is okay to take a breath. And it's also okay to have, like in your back pocket, a phrase like, oh, that's a good question. Can I think on that? Or I'll need to get back to you. Like a really simple little phrase that, like, oh, that's interesting. Or I want to think about this more. Like, I need a little time. And that those are really, really reasonable requests that I'd say 98% of people respond positively to. That other 2%, you don't need them in your life. If they're, but the 98% of people are like, oh, okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
You can have a little more time.
Right. And noticing too how sometimes we're the ones putting the pressure on ourselves. Taking a moment to
Mhm.
sit with that, right? Oh, I can slow down and enjoy the sound of the birds. I can feel the warmth of sun on my skin, which is so lovely to envision right now as it's like sub-zero in the Midwest and across, much of the US. Right? It's okay. Permission to enjoy. And even I got to recently a space, and in yoga, I believe this is the space we call sattva, balance, where, you know, there wasn't anything wrong. And I was sitting and I'm like, okay, after I went through my little mental checklist using my um, subconscious approach, not my subconscious approach, but like the muscle testing approach, like, okay, is it this? Nope, nope, nope. Okay, it's not for the main things that it could be. Perhaps there's just nothing wrong right now, right? So celebrating that, celebrating the work that we even did in this small conversational container, right? In the first episode, we set an energetic bubble. If you haven't seen it, I invite you to go watch it. And that's what's about Yoga PodClass. We want to give you tangible tools and have an exercise or an experience in this space that leaves you impacted, positively changed, planting a seed, watering a seed, perhaps pulling out a weed. And, I'm always going to recommend to pull those out by the tap root. And one of the other things that Kerstin mentioned was that her now husband called her out on it. And in a way that she could hear him, it's so important, very much about accountability is love, but truth in love, right? I'm not, people are like, well, what? I'm just being honest. I'm sorry if you can't handle that. I'm brutally honest. And it's like, no, I don't. No, thank you. Right? Please, truth and love. And you can tell me, and it is the most loving thing you can do for somebody. And and also knowing when not to call somebody out, right? Like we don't have to critique our every single thing about our friend or our partner or our family member. Um, but in those moments, and that's where this sacred pause, this being able to breathe and be truly regulated before having to have a response, and consciously knowing that it's even okay to ask for that extra space. Whoa, it seems revolutionary, but it really is that simple. And I think it's moments like that that we get to bring each other back to our humanity. Let's breathe, right? Let's get off the hamster wheel and let's take a moment to really connect and be present. Are there any other tools that you think are necessary in learning how to set boundaries with yourself or others, whether it be with you're an entrepreneur, maybe you've had the struggle of scheduling your own time and holding yourself into time blocks and boundaries, what are ways that you did hold yourself accountable when there wasn't anybody else to say like, "Hey, I signed your paycheck. You need to do this," right? What do you do? How do you hold those boundaries with yourself?
That's a really good question, Chelsea. I and it is something I've struggled with that I have over the years have had challenges with. And I'll say the biggest thing that's helped me is writing things down and journaling. And sort of in that same vein, this is why I created both a journal and a daily planner, because these are literally the things that help hold me accountable, that help me work through and figure out. Like, because often when you're at a point, like, you might know that you need something to change or that you need a boundary, but then there's like 20 questions of wait, but what exactly do I need? What am I asking for? And it's really easy to kind of get lost in that overwhelm kind of feeling of like, but it's like too much. I can't sort this out. The trick at that point is to pick up pen and paper and write it down because that actually connects you back into your subconscious. And that the next best thing, if like you don't have pen and paper, like maybe you're in your car driving somewhere, pull over, do a voice memo or a voice to typing, in one of your apps in your phone, like talk through it out loud with yourself is the next best thing to writing it down.
And I really like you said pull over, right? Pull over what you're doing. That's not just a safety tip, right? In our world of distracted driving, that is literally like stop what you're doing, monotask for just one moment, take a breath before and after, and be intentional with each moment of your day. And what I always, my little plug is that 1%, right? 15 minutes of our day at a time of being intentionally present, intentionally mindful. It builds our capacity to do it in our everyday life and happening. And when you can start even building those segments, 1, 3, 5 minutes at a time to where you get 15 minutes in a day, you're not just like, oh, I did my 15 minutes and I'm done for the day, which is if you want to do that in the morning, I highly recommend it, right? But if you're like me, I had to like snowball into things, right? 2 minutes of presence here, 3 minutes here, 1 minute here. And that return to continuity, that return to consistency of, okay, now I show up and I've practiced parasympathetic dominance, which is our rest and digest, our longer exhales, our relaxation response, that that's become my new normal. And wow, we can train a new normal. And I know what to do when I'm not in, not that you have to be like in Zen mode all the time. Like I get active and I get bursts of energy, and there's so much that I'm doing. And I love riding those waves, but I'm not doing it from a triggered state. I'm doing it from an embodied, present, intentional, like, I am enjoying the ride of life right now. And that joy, right? When I say no to the things that suck and drain me, I have more capacity to say yes to the things that are naturally gratifying, that bring inner joy, outer joy. And I'm excited about it. And then there's that I'm more likely to have real human connection and a smile at the person at the grocery store that I don't even know. How do I know? Because I'm doing it. I literally, that's where I came from. I went to the grocery store and it, the world greets you differently when you greet the world differently. And it starts from that inside. And what is one thing I'm asking our listeners, and feel free to respond if you know one for yourself, Kirsten, like that you can say no to that is going to give you time for something else?
I mean, I'm thinking so much about what you were sharing earlier about, taking Facebook off of your phone. Like, I think I can definitely get sucked into the scrolling and being stuck in that. And I know that if I set better boundaries on that, I likely will feel better. And then my energetic time can actually go towards the things I want to do instead of feeling like it's being sucked out of me.
One of the things that I enjoy doing when I'm working on those habit changing, identity changing, structural habits is if I take something away, I want to put something in its place. And today, I figured out what I was going to put in my place for not starting my day with Facebook. And it's going to be an audible Om. Right? I'm like, it's just one little thing. Right? So that is what I'm going to wake up and do tomorrow. I will report back next week. Um, on the conversation, some of the words that stuck out to me that you mentioned were change. And I'd asked our audience earlier to notice where change registered in their body. Taking that breath, following, and giving it quality. Is it warm? Is it cold? Is it sharp? Is it sticky? Is it rigid? Are there other emotions that come up with it? Are there colors that come up with it? According to neuroscience, change registers in the same part of our brain as pain. So when we are trying to change habits, almost expect some discomfort. And noticing the difference between actual pain and sensation, discontentment and discomfort, and the subtle nuances even of emotions, right? Are you angry or are you slightly irritated? Are you angry or are you frustrated? Because when you can start to articulate what's happening inside, because each of those motions has a frequency and it's vibrating and it's making you feel a certain way, whether you can consciously connect to it interoceptively, somatic is the word that is, it's the buzzword for sure. So I use it, right? Like I'm a somatic trauma informed yoga instructor because I know those are the words, those are the things that people are talking about. Though I feel silly when I say I'm a somatic yoga instructor because I've had people approach me and say, well, how are you somatic? Well, I do carry a couple credentials in somatic experiencing. However, yoga in itself is inherently somatic. Like it teaches interoception, which is what that somatic noticing is. So in my Oceans of You experience, I actually called my little 15-minute like meditations, I call them somatic drops, right? A moment where you could drop in, feel, notice, and just be present with what is. Another interesting part about pausing, it's we're not always looking for the ick, right? We're noticing the spaces and places that already have capacity to hold. That energy is flowing freely. It's not stuck. It's not restricted. The places that feel good, the places that feel joyous and free. Because where our attention goes, energy flows, right? We're talking about our energy leaks essentially with this whole social media thing. Where are we leaking our energy to that could be preserved, guarded, our peace protected? And we're the only ones that can be the gatekeeper to that. I love what you said about writing it down. It it really does make such a difference. I remember reading about the best surgeons are the ones who make lists. And I was like, "Oh." And they went on to say because they wrote it down, their brain stores it in a different way, like into long-term memory versus like the like the computer turns like the random access memory that you have to hold on to right here, right? So it frees up your RAM space so it can go into long-term processing. And then all of your conscious awareness is really at the task at hand, which I want my surgeon, if I have to have one, to do everything that they're supposed to. Yes, please make a checklist so you don't leave a sponge inside of me. And I don't say that lightly because those are medical malpractice. I don't want to say malpractice, I'm sorry, but like accidents that happen, right? And what is so simple about writing something down is what you said about how it reconnects us to our subconscious and it brings us into the present moment. And we can have that invitation to stay, right? My other heartfelt kind of bubble up on off of the things that you said has to do with that stay, not abandoning ourselves in the moment, right? When it feels uncomfortable, when you don't, we talked about the nuances of things that you have to do that you don't necessarily want to do. The dishes, the laundry, like those things, right? And teasing out the difference between this is a disciplined obligatory yes, and this is my authentic yes, right? This is my absolutely not, this is my boundary. I don't do this. No. And this is I don't want to do this, but I know I have to. So I'm going to. Or even just the one other flip of I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to say yes anyway, right? There's so many different, like my yes mean yes is what we're going for, and my no mean no. And what we're trying to tie that to isn't necessarily the in the moment, oh no, I don't want to do the dishes. But what's in alignment with my greatest and highest good and purpose, right? I know that when I do my dishes before I go to bed at night, that I wake up to a clean kitchen. And when I start my day in that manner, so that I can prepare myself a beautiful breakfast in peace, clutter free. Boundaries come in so many forms. It is not black and white. I go back to that first practice of our first conversation of kind of just setting the energetic bubble and saying, this is what my no's are, and writing them down and making another column of these are my yeses. These are the things that I am doing or I want to be doing that somehow I just don't do.
Yeah. What and Chelsea, while you were talking, something literally clicked into place in my brain that I hadn't actually put together before. Can I share that with you?
Please do. Yeah. Yeah.
So, coming back to the writing things down piece. During the pandemic, I like my journaling practice kind of exploded, and that's really what got me through that time of isolation and feeling like, the world was just not as it should be. And I realized in talking to my clients and my friends that a lot of folks struggle with journaling, that there's this either hesitation or fears or all these things get in the way. So I just, because this is what I do, I like solve problems and help people. I started creating a workshop where I was like, great, I'm going to teach people like how to journal. And I was like, well, I got to like fine tune it into something simple because it can feel really overwhelming because there are so many different ways that you can journal. And I ended up developing my own 5-step method to make journaling really simple to do in a short amount of time, to be able to write through the gnarly stuff stuck in your head and to feel good about it at the end, like to feel good about the process. And Chelsea, while you were talking right now, I was like, oh, that 5-step method, like this was before I knew I was the boundaries coach. That 5-step method was creating boundaries around journaling so that you don't get overwhelmed like, oh, it's going to take me 20 minutes or an hour to write something, so that you can do it in 5 minutes, so that you can skip the things that you don't want to write about or you don't have time for. That I was literally making a boundary practice around journaling that I've now shared with so many people I've lost track of the number at this point.
Yes. And that has also snowballed into, don't you have a weekly journaling group?
Mhm.
Yes.
I
And
do.
how can somebody join this weekly journaling group or get your method to set
Mm,
boundaries around their journal?
yes. Both you can find through my website, loveandlivewellness.com. And I'm realizing that for getting my journaling guide, I think the only link to it is actually at the bottom of my homepage. I need to fix that. But if you go to my website, loveandlivewellness.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a link for a journaling guide. And it's also in my Instagram, Love and Live Wellness, in my links. You can get my free journaling guide. And if you'd like to join Community, my journaling group, learn more about it on my website, maybe about halfway down the page. There's a little thing, it says Community, and it's spelled T like the tea you drink at the end, because
Yes.
it's more than just like a community group of people. It's a connection. And my members tell me again and again, like it's better than therapy.
I need to check it out. I'm intrigued. I really am. And because I have boundaries, right? Like I'm very protective of what I commit my time to, but that one, it is an alignment and I'm excited that you offer that. And what else is back to that accountability is love, right? When you know that there's a group of people meeting up are going to do that and they're, like you're going to miss out on the tea if you're not there and who doesn't like tea? And I'm not even talking about the gossip tea, right? There is something in that camaraderie built cohesive container. I had just to throw all those C's together. That that you look forward to, I'm sure. So what
Hmm.
day and time is your writing
Hmm.
group?
Yeah. So community, we meet on Fridays and we meet 4:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific. So yeah, and we've got a couple members that are on the East Coast that, then basically they are mostly ready for bed before community starts, and because they're also early to bed people. And then community ends and they hop off and go to sleep. Yeah, and we've got a number of folks on I think mostly people are near the coasts for the most part. We got like one person that's a little bit inland, but otherwise it's like coastal states at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I'll be joining from the Midwest and the that space to be held, right?
Mm.
Where even if you're just on a screen and you know other people are writing about their stuff and you're writing about your own stuff, that is a contained space and it holds a boundary, right? Like I'm going to show up to this
Yep.
group and then I'm going to put it away and then it becomes part of your routine. And that's that return back to the practice.
Yeah. A-
So beautiful.
And to circle it back to, talking about my quote spreadsheet,
Yes.
that is directly related to my journaling group because I share with the journaling process, I share the inspirational quote and I offer a journaling prompt. And so you can write on the prompt exactly as it is, or a number of my members, they'll take something from the quote and they're like, oh no, I want to write about that. Or there'll be or they'll make a variation of the question I've asked. But whatever I've put forward, they're like, oh, I find a thing here. I'm going to write on that. And then we come back and we share together. Like, and I'm also, I like to say this too, that I'm very mindful because I'm mostly an introvert, I would say, that the spaces I create are introvert friendly. Like it's never popcorn style. You're never waiting for someone to jump in and speak. It's we go in the same order. We keep those turns so you know when you're next speaking. And then there's usually time at the end, like if you want to add something in, that little part, naturally happens a bit more kind of spontaneous in that sense.
Mhm.
But having that, again, boundaries of we're going to go in this same order. And we always start community by sharing our joys from the week.
That is so good. It feels good just to hear you talk about it. And then, I mean, of course, with being a quote freak, like, well played pun. I love that. Community. Like that is beautiful. It just feels warm, like you're having your friends over for tea. And the timing of it, right? Yeah, I'm an early to bed type person too. That right before bed, I know that journaling at that time is so helpful because it helps like clear your brain to be prepared for rest. So people who have a hard time falling asleep or staying asleep, writing this stuff down and, you know, letting go and letting God, right? You wrote it down, you submitted your your joys, your fears, your concerns, your dreams to the universe. And you can sleep well knowing that somebody heard, right? I love so much about yoga, and a lot of my teaching has been really in the trauma informed space. And in the trauma informed space, we stay away from the spiritual side of things and any type of like yoga mythology, but also even the Sanskrit terms. So as I've continued opening my teaching back into classical yoga, where I'm talking about all the Sanskrit and different mythology, it's actually been a lot of fun and playful and made me not take myself so seriously because I realized my pronunciation of so much of it is so off. But I'm like, all the ancient yogis are just laughing with me as I stumble over this Sanskrit. And I've learned as I've continued to practice that until I get the understanding of a meaning, I might stumble on that word for a very long time. And then all of a sudden, the understanding clicks, and all of a sudden I can pronounce it. So it's really a good barometer. So as you've been on this yoga podcast journey with me, I just want to thank you all so much for being here, right? For growing and learning with me. Your feedback, your comments, your questions has shaped so much of where this podcast continues to go. Kerstin, thank you so much for just being willing to jump on and say, this is the idea. Let's talk about it and see what comes up in conversation. You're getting these candid responses from two people who live and breathe what we're working. And I couldn't do it in any other way. I love connecting with other people who, yes, mirror for me parts that I can't necessarily see myself, or those people in my life that have that truth and love. Hey, Chelsie, I noticed this. Like, oh, right? And approaching it with that, oh, that curiosity instead of eternal blame or shame or condemnation. And I come from that place, right? Where I could hear criticism and I could work through it, but it wasn't without this internal dialogue of essentially you suck. So did the person giving me the criticism know that I was feeling that? No, but I internalized it. And I'm glad that I didn't take it out on somebody else. But I also, like, as a himsa, to not take it out on myself. And that's just an invitation for our listeners, too, that welcome that constructive criticism from those who are qualified to give it, right? The peanut gallery, the Facebook comment section is not where the people who love you are going to call out your blind spots, right? It's going to be it's going to be in a safe container. Maybe it's going to be in a group setting of people who are working on their own self journey and wherever they may be in that journey. And everybody's journey looks different. If you are in a space that's like you have to do it this way, I would challenge that, right? A lot of developing boundaries has to do with honoring autonomy. yes, this is for me. No, this is not for me. And while, yes, we have methods and framework, right? When we can approach them with an earnest, intrinsic motivation of showing up to like, I show up to this because this is what I want to do and this is who I am, even if I'm just practicing it because it's not my normal habit right now, but I really want to do it. It's very different from checking the box. Yep, I did this. Yep, I did this. Yep, I did this. Right? Our teaching approach is from that embodied intrinsic motivation. We want to draw or maybe stoke that fire inside of you because it's already there. If you are listening to this episode, watching this podcast, you're asking questions. You've heard about boundaries. You're on that path. And we're so excited that you would take the time to listen in and reflect and allow us to be the gentle pot stirrers, if you will, of like, what does it feel like to notice change or our resistance to it? What does it feel like to say no to ourself? Oh, Kirsten, do you have anything as we part today? I know you're getting ready to kick off. You're getting ready to kick off your group container, right? In a couple weeks? Still time to
Yeah,
sign up?
I've got my signature program, Boundaries and Balance. Although on previous episodes, I believe I told you all it started February 15th. But I realized that astrologically and with my calendar, it's getting shifted a week later. So it's actually not starting until February 22nd
Okay.
is when it'll be starting. So from where we're recording it, little less than a month from now, but in there. Yes. And so if you're interested in boundaries and balance, you can find it also on my website, Love and Live Wellness. And I had a little inspiration thing strike me, Chelsea,
Yes.
coming back to my weekly journaling group community. I would love to offer all of your yoga podcast listeners a discount
Yeah.
on that membership because it's normally 99 a month.
Okay.
But I'd love to offer your listeners a discount of saving $50. So then it's only 49 a month to become a member of community. And that I'll set it up right after we get off this call. So by the time this recording is live, this coupon code will be will be active for it to be Yoga PodClass. All
Yes.
one word as the coupon code to save $50 off of your community membership. And that's for the life of your membership. That's not the first month. That means for going forward, as long as you stay an active member, it's just 49 a month.
Thank you so much. That is such a gift. And really it's that container space. It has boundaries, there's safety. It has that warm fuzzy tea invite. And thank you. I will definitely be seeing you there. And I'm excited about the launch of your next container. Best wishes. I know it's 10 months long. It starts off with like a 6-week intensive, correct? And then you
Mm-hmm.
meet monthly after that. So
Correct. Yeah.
yeah. And And you can find her, like she said, on loveandlivewellness.com. What is so exciting about our collaborative efforts is that we get to introduce our personalities and what we have to offer and to a wider audience, right? We get to have conversations about the things that we're teaching with our clients, with each other, because we start to realize that we're saying the same things regularly to our clients. And when we kind of see where people's starting points are, that's how we develop these frameworks. Like, okay, when clients come see me, this is most often the ABCs that I start them with. And I appreciate it because it's those experiential, tried and true methods of like, this is how I did this. And again, still giving people that space for autonomy. Like, well, I shifted this and I needed to do it this and like this. It's for me. But that's part of that self-awareness, right? And getting in touch with what is your yes and what is your no. So you can be aligned with that path and that framework or those tweaks and modifications, and this is in yoga asana, that physical practice, right? Giving yourself a block or doing chair yoga while you're waiting for your appointment. And yoga, again, is that breath, that self awareness, journal reflection, and the movement. And when you can link them together with intentional awareness and a return to consistency, and also stepping away from the lights, the sounds, and really just being quiet and noticing what happens in your brain when I say that. What if you were just to sit in the quiet? And if it's going like this, it's okay. It's just information, right? It's just inviting you to get curious. I thank you all for being here. I am finishing up. Oceans of View is live in the app, and Apple just had to do some updates, so it is relaunching on Apple. Or it's still there, but you just can't get into the learning section. So by the time that this is actually live, it should be back up and running. But you can access any of my programs on my website. It's h3alealus.online. I'd love to have you in the Oceans of You container. It is a self-paced course with a community feature and a one-on-one upgrade. Or feel free to book any of my group containers. I have a 100-day container and then my year-long anchor program. If you're looking for some one-on-one support, you can book me. I have a one-on-one session, or I have packages, 3, 6, and 10 session packages. I encourage you to explore commitment, right? You can show up to a practice and you'll likely receive a benefit and maybe, and ideally, right, take away a lasting tool. But if you commit to say, I'm going to show up 3 times and this is what I want to work on, or I'm going to show up 6 times and this is what I want to work on, with that intentionality, you're going to get more. And then each of the sessions are recorded. You get to keep those for life, and you have your own personalized, tailored practice. Happy to see you. Happy to hear your questions, your reflections. Until next time, namaste.